Greetings. Greetings. Welcome to the Uncle Vigilante Show. Reuben Yap, co-founder and project steward of Firo, formerly Zine, privacy technology, PGP. You know me. I don't know what the hell most of this stuff is. I don't know shit, but we're going to unpack it today. But I do want to clarify one thing, Reuben Yap, is you are not my wife. I just want to go on record right now. You are not my wife. But this interview does bring back fond memories because when I was introduced to my wife, the guy who introduced me, he was from Washington, D.C. He didn't tell me she lived in Ekaterinburg, Russia, and she was a professor at Ural State University. So when I started talking to her, there was a 12-hour time difference, just like there is today with you. So thank you for bringing back those fond memories. That was 6 weeks of me calling in the morning, asking how your day is, and she calling me at the night, asking how your day was. 6 weeks later, I met her in person. Within 30 seconds, she's such a beautiful woman. I asked her to marry me. No shit, that was...
What? Really? Within 30 seconds of meeting her?
I had to visually verify that she wasn't a Boris. And she had a great voice, has a great voice. And my buddy who set it up, he was Kodak's, he built out Kodak's photo labs back in the day when Kodak used to have photo labs in Russia.
Yep.
And my wife, Yana, was his interpreter and translator for a year. And so he and his wife, Barbara, got to know Yana really well. And so when there was a point I got divorced about 3 months after that, he reached out and he said, "Hey, Todd, I hope this isn't too soon, but Barbara and I were talking. We think there's someone in this world you should know." And he gave me her email address, and that's
Wow.
it. And he said, "I will tell you, she's way smarter and way better looking than you. So if something works out, you owe me." So I was thinking, I lived in Nashville, North Carolina. I'm like, okay, it's 8 hours to Washington, D.C. I can drive. That's cool. And so I email her, and then I get an email back the next day saying, I wish I would have never corrected her on this. She said, "Oh my godness," instead of goodness. God, I wish I would have never corrected her because it was just so sweet. And it's like my daughter Alex, she used to say "yeah, yo" instead of yellow.
Yeah,
I wish I would have never corrected her on that too. But anyway, she sent me an email that said, "Oh yeah, my name is Yana Shvedova. I'm a professor at Ural State University in Ekaterinburg, Russia, and Bob and Barbara told me all about you and blah, blah, blah."
Wow.
And she attached this picture, and I was like, whoa, she's hot. and so for 6 weeks, I got Vonage, and I started talking to her in the morning and night, and it was awesome. So 6 weeks later, I was in Russia. And sure enough, when I visually verified that she was who that and she didn't have this, sorry, anyone out there, I don't mean to offend, but how you can have a pretty face and then something go way wrong. I wanted to verify that something didn't go way wrong, and she was just perfect for me. So I asked her to marry me, and everyone thought I was nuts, but it's been 15 years of marriage heaven, and I mean that with all my heart. Wow. She's not even paying me to say that. But anyway, I just wanted to tee that up because you are in Malaysia, which is also a 12-hour time difference. And you are co-founder and project steward of Firo. Today, we want to unpack that. As people know, and I introduced before the show, I am a newbie, as are our humble group of community members who subscribe to my channel. There's about 2,500 of us, and it's growing. But, we are mostly newbies. And so we are fond of privacy. We get that side of it. So for me, I don't look at all of these different projects as either or. I look at them as both and. And what I have learned is that in the development of these projects, you as technologists make different tech decisions based upon your macro worldview and where you want to go with a project. So it doesn't make one tech decision good or bad. It's just that if you make this decision, you might give something up later over here, or if you make this decision, it might help you over here. I think I have that right, but above and beyond that, I don't know. That's why you're here to educate us on all things privacy. So welcome to the show, Reuben. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and glad to be on. And thank you for sharing me about your story. I actually did a long distance relationship before, and she was in the UK and I was in Malaysia. So yeah, I know how it's all about.
Yeah. It was awesome, man. It was awesome. A lot of dopamine hits. I loved every time the phone rang. I'm like, oh man, I get to hear her voice again. By the way, everyone, we also have Max Freeman on the line. He is the founder of Epic Cash and Epicenter. And he actually introduced me to Reuben, even though kind of on paper, they may be competitors. I don't know. We're going to figure that out today. But that's what I love about a specific group of these privacy leaders is that, they get it. They have this get it factor that, hey, we all make different tech decisions and we can all debate about it and hug it out later, but we have the same macro goal of keeping our holders private. So Reuben, can you tell us about Firo, formerly Zcoin, I believe, and just give us your backstory, please?
Sure. So I guess a bit about me first. I actually come from a legal background. So I was actually a lawyer for 10 years prior to going full-time into crypto. I kind of started at crypto in about 2000, well, when was that? 2013, maybe. And I was probably like the first online merchant to accept Bitcoin in my country. So, I didn't really know much about it, just someone told me because I ran a VPN business, because my country was censoring stuff. And I was like, some people were saying, well, and this ties into privacy because they were like, back then people thought that Bitcoin was private, and even many people today still think that Bitcoin is anonymous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying that, well, if you run a privacy service, why don't you accept Bitcoin? Because it's the private way to pay. And I was like, all right, sure, whatever this funny money is. I mean, Bitcoin then was like, I don't know, $70, $50, something ridiculously low like that.
Yeah.
And I just took it and just found someone to convert it out. So yeah, I should have kept it, but back then I had a business to run, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And yeah, so basically, I mean, I come from a country where even the internet was censored, right? Like even opposition views of political views can be even cut off. Like we were censored from medium.com for, I don't know, like 5-6 years.
Medium?
Yeah, Medium, because there was, there was this one blog that was like talking critically about the government and they just censored the whole thing. So I know very personally what it's like.
Right.
I also know personally what it's like to be cut off from the financial system just because the financial institutions or the governments are not comfortable with it, even if it's totally legal. So for example, a VPN service, like when you talk about VPN services now, no one thinks about illicit activity about that, right? It's more about, oh yeah, it's part about like an antivirus, right? It's just like protecting your internet. And back then, even now, many people see VPN services as high risk, like, in the same category as, I don't know, sex work. There's nothing wrong with it, but they put it in the same category that we're not going to be doing your business. We cut off your credit card support. You can't use our payment gateway. And that's kind of how I got into cryptocurrency. So, I was both like, anti-censorship and like being cut off from the financial system. And that's how I have kind of like a natural affinity to privacy coins. So yeah, I mean, Firo, I guess, or Zcoin as it then was, started in September 2016. So we weren't a new project. And we were actually the first project to use this new type of, well, some people call it like the zero knowledge proof way. Actually, it's theoretically, as in, it's not exactly correct to call it that way, but we kind of pioneered the sort of burn and redeem mechanism of privacy. And I guess how how I can explain it is, for example, when you get a coin from Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you look through the blockchain history, you can basically trace the history of these coins since it was first mined. You went to this address, and then like sort of like see the flow. That's what we call the transaction graph, how we see the flow of the coin. So what Firo was trying to do, or Zcoin was then trying to do, was to allow people to destroy their coins, and at any time in the future to redeem them for brand new ones with no associated transaction history. So that means you have all these people burning their coins, and then anytime they make new coins appear. So it's kind of like you're getting fresh virgin coins, which is, well, is anonymous because there's no associated history to link it with. So that is how it started. Of course, we rebranded.
Can I stop you there? And that's
sure.
The guests probably get frustrated is I stop you often because I just don't understand some things.
Got it. No problem.
So you start this project, and when you talk about getting a coin and burning it, to me as a newbie, that would scare the crap out of me. It's like, what are you talking about? I just spent, let's just hypothetically say, $5,000 on this coin, and you want me to burn it on the promise that one day I can resurrect it like Jesus?
Yeah, the way to think about it is, well, it's not that you lose control of it. It's more like throwing it into a black hole, well, which isn't very reassuring either. But think about it is that you have a receipt that allows you to always redeem the money from the black hole. Like you can make it appear again. So
that would imply that I trust you a whole lot.
No, you don't have to trust us. It's basically the mathematics allows this to happen, right?
Okay.
So I mean, like, of course, people, cryptographers and all that says that this math allows you to redeem it. And I guess the basic idea of this, what we call zero knowledge proof, is what are zero knowledge proofs? Is the ability to prove something without actually telling you it, right? So that means I can prove that I burnt a coin without showing you which coin I burnt. So all I need to do is to produce this receipt, and I know that you are one of the many thousands of people that have burned the coins before, but I don't need to show which one I am.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you get it? So that's what a zero knowledge proof means. So for example, like Max, who uses Mimblewimble, right? And Mimblewimble hides amounts, as in like to make sure that like when you look on the blockchain, you don't know how much is being transacted. That is also another form of zero knowledge proof, where I am proving that I'm transferring a valid amount of value without actually showing you the actual value. And that's also another form of zero knowledge proof. So tell me the difference. And I know this, believe it or not, I even know the answer to this, but for other newbies, how is that different then from a Bitcoin transaction? So Bitcoin doesn't have any sort of privacy whatsoever. The most that they have is what we call pseudonymity. And what it means is like a pseudonym, right? Like you write a book, you put a pen name instead of Reuben, I put Rubina or something like that. No one knows Rubina actually, matches to Reuben. So that's what a pseudonym is. It's not totally anonymous. Like people know that someone wrote it that is calling themselves Rubina, but the content is not hidden. The problem is that just like a real life pseudonym with like an author, like, if I do enough sleuthing, I eventually find out that Rubina is Reuben. And then now I can see everything that Rubina did is actually Reuben, right?
Okay.
So in the same way in Bitcoin, yes, I don't know who this address belongs to, but once I gather enough information, I use, statistical analysis, or I find other sources, or let's say you just pay me some Bitcoin, I know this address is yours. Immediately, I start to be able to tie this address to your identity, and then all your previous transaction history is kind of revealed.
It's all revealed. It's all on the chain so that you can go in and analyze it. So somebody with nefarious intent could go in and take a look at it. And could it be the case then, Reuben, to where if 6 transactions ago, the Bitcoin that I now hold was used for illicit transactions as deemed by whomever, But is that when we start talking about coins that are tainted, and that being kind of the risk of Bitcoin versus other privacy coins?
Well, I mean, Bitcoin isn't a privacy coin, but you're right. There is always the problem of taint and the idea that I mean, you have in US, you have like civil forfeiture laws, right? That if it's connected to some illicit activity, if they manage to find out who that other wallet is, they could seize those proceeds and investigate. Like I don't think they even need like a very high degree to seize. They just say, oh yeah, this was connected to this illegal transaction, and now it was passed on to you, and now I'm going to take it. And
could you imagine? Earning $1,000 for doing something. Let's say you worked on somebody's car, and you got $1,000, and they wanted to pay you in cash. And if there was some kind of forensics on that cash that detected cocaine, and if said, hey, because it has cocaine on it, we're going to seize your $1,000. That's kind of what we're talking about here, right?
Correct. If I'm not mistaken, I think over 90% of US dollars have some trace of cocaine on them.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. It's just you don't know. So really, the macro goal of starting as a one of your baseline goals of launching your project, and you being project steward,
right?
Privacy is right there at the top of the list, right?
Yes, and I think especially, I come from an Asian country. I mean, like, I don't know whether US is much better nowadays, but
I know,
our civil liberties are always at risk. We have the rise of authoritarian governments that are keen to impose as much control as they can, right? And I always see that having private, decentralized money, I'm not saying that we should replace fiat, but then there should be this alternative that keeps the governments in check, right? Because if we all force into the fiat system, or now as what we are calling the digital dollar, or the CBDCs, or what they call central bank digital currencies, where the government can basically surveil or cut you off from the system.
Right.
Yeah, and this is actually kind of happening in certain parts of China as well. Like, you don't have the right social credit score.
Yes.
Yeah, you get cut off from this and that system. And it may seem kind of alien now, but I feel that if we allow this to happen, it will eventually creep on. Yeah.
Let me introduce a little non-alienhood for you. Okay. Just the number 2. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, people. That's all. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That was 18 months ago. And there are a lot of, a lot of Canadian friends who are still in full on LD. I try not to say it. I got a strike the other day for just saying the V word. And it's like, so we're starting to get it. And then when you war game this out and you start talking about social credit scores, where the training wheels now are in China. So it's not like there isn't a pilot out there. And it's not like it isn't coming here or to a backyard near you. And so I think this is really smart at this point in time, to where I think worldwide the adoption rate of cryptocurrency is way less than 1%. So if you're watching this, you're in on the ground floor of something really special, but also something very smart. And that's why we like leaning privacy, because we would kind of like to keep what we earn. Do I have that right?
Yeah. One thing I also want to kind of highlight that, of course, like, as you said, like, the social credit score may or may not happen in the US, right? It may seem a bit far-fetched, but there are also other ways to control your populations, like as we have seen in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? Where people like Facebook, companies like Facebook, build social profiles of individuals. And, there's that, of course, there's some, we don't know whether, who's telling the truth, but there's some evidence that say that they could use that to personalize content to sway your opinions, right? And
Sure.
that in a way is also a kind of control. And they only can exercise that control because they have that information about you, right? They know what you like, what you stuff. And similarly with with our money, right? Can you imagine now they know what we spend on, right? So even if it's not like like a obvious like social credit score minus thing and then kick it out. There are other ways that I think if US is going to enforce their soft power, it will be through methods like this. The more information I know about my citizens, the more I know how I can influence them, how I can feed them certain types of information. And I really think that, obviously financial privacy is one of those things that is one of the most private things about our life. Some people don't even tell their wives how much they have. I mean, yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this. So since you are the steward, since you are the co-founder of a project that, is based in privacy, what are the elements to hide for a coin to become a true privacy coin?
I'm very glad you asked that question because a lot of people call themselves privacy coins, but they don't have these key elements to be a privacy coin. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that we want to hide is what we call the transaction graph. And an easy way to explain this is we are hiding the flow of money, right? So remember in Bitcoin, you can see A transfers to B, transfers to C and D. That's what we call the transaction graph, the flow of money. So we want to hide that. So when we transact, I'm
not being rude, by the way, looking down, I'm taking notes. Just wanted to tell you.
No problem. So that means I'm hiding the source of the funds. I'm hiding how it passed from different hands. Just like cash, right? You don't really know how the flow of cash really has gone.
Right.
Secondly, we want to hide amounts, which is how much is being transacted, right? That means when I'm on the blockchain, do I see 1 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoin? Like if you take a look, there's certain Twitter accounts called whale alerts, or where if a large whale suddenly decides to sell or buy, that's transparent for everyone to see because they see, 100,000 Bitcoins are moving. And again, that's something that you want to hide because that can give a lot of information as well, right? The other type of privacy is what we call like metadata, right? Not just the actual transaction on the blockchain, but surrounding information about it. And I guess for blockchain transactions, it's like your IP address, right? If I can tie an IP address to a particular transaction, then, I kind of know who did this transaction, right? Because an IP address, unless you use a VPN or Tor, I can tie it to a personal identity, right? And that's another element. And I guess the last thing that you may want to also hide, which I guess is the least important, but it's also a good element, which is what we call receiver privacy, right? When I'm receiving money, I don't want other people to know that I'm receiving money. So, for example, like if I put a Bitcoin address on my website, right? Or you put a donation address on your YouTube, people pay into it. Suddenly people know that, Uncle V has got like, X amount of Bitcoin or X amount of cryptocurrency that's inside. And the receiver has also to be protected from the sender, not just the sender. Yeah.
That's amazing. But what's your answer then, Reuben, to people that say, look, those people hell-bent on privacy coins they're just shady?
Well, I mean, like, okay, well, why don't you, don't close the toilet store when you go to the toilet, right? Let everyone see your junk, right? I mean, it is not just about, it's not about just hiding. It's not just about hiding like undesirable or shameful behavior, right? It's like the inner thoughts of our mind. We don't want everyone to know that, right? And similarly with our finances, okay, like a very good example is, okay, let's say I use a non-private cryptocurrency. Let's say I use Bitcoin, right? Okay. And I pay for a cup of coffee, right? Let's say that I have 100 Bitcoin and I pay 0.0001 Bitcoin for this coffee, right? And just imagine a world where cryptocurrencies are mainstream and everyone's using cryptocurrency, right? Okay. Now I'm Starbucks or the coffee guy, right? And I look up that transaction and I immediately see, oh, I didn't know that you had 100 Bitcoin in your wallet. I'm going to treat you very nice now, right? Because they see that, oh, this money came from a wallet that has a lot of money, right?
Right.
And why should that sort of information be given out? It's not that you have anything to hide, but people make judgments of that. So I do think that even just from a commercial transactions, right? If I want to use cryptocurrency to pay my employees, if I want to buy stuff from my supplier, I don't want everyone to know who I'm paying, who my supplier is, who I, how much I'm paying them, right? That's like confidential information. So
I'm gonna play a little.
yeah.
I'm gonna play a little jujitsu on you, Reuben. Yeah, I have a great idea based upon what you just said, because I want to talk about fake privacy coins, because there's a lot of coins out there that are just slapping the moniker privacy on it and declaring them privacy coins. So I want to, based upon what you just said, you gave me a great idea. I want to launch an Uncle Whale privacy coin, except it's going to be different. I want to instead have like 0.0025 Bitcoin, but have it wink, wink, be not private, but surveillance. When they see it, I want them to see it, and they're going to see that I have 125 Bitcoin in there. So it'll fake left, go right. Then everybody will treat me nice. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, so this really gets my goat, right? I mean, like, obviously there are many privacy coins out there, and obviously we may disagree as to the best way to go about it, but the ones that I do, a lot of them I do respect. Like, I may not agree, but you're building real tech, right? But there are, of course, fake privacy coins. I mean, there are many, like,
give me an example of what you would consider coins that are building real tech that you just off the top of your mind. I know it's not going to be all inclusive, but you know, give me a few.
So for example, like Monero, right? I mean, that's the number one privacy coin in terms of market cap. Then you have Zcash, right? Hate them or like them, they're building really cool tech, right? These people are the ones that are actually building new privacy technologies. They're not just like copying, pasting, and like, we at Firo also build our own privacy tech. We're not copying just from anyone else. We actually actively building privacy protocols, right? And that's not easy. It consumes a lot of money, and a lot of the times people, just because we're being open source, we do all the work, people copy our work and bam, copy paste and that sort of stuff. So obviously I would say the leaders, especially, I mean, like, I'm not so fond of the way Zcash operates, but the tech that they built is pretty solid. So I understand you also interview Pirate Chain, right? Or R, and they also use Zcash technology. I mean, Pirate Chain hasn't done anything to further like the tech, but they still enjoy the benefits of all that Zcash has done.
And that's the ZK snarks? Is that the right terminology, or no?
ZK snarks is a component of the technology, I guess you can call it that. I mean, some people call them Graph 16 circuits, but it's just easier to just call it like sapling or something like that. And,
how would you describe to a newbie your tech?
Okay. So remember I talked about the burning and redeeming, right? So that's an easy way to really explain it. We allow people to, burn arbitrary amount of coins.
Walk me through the process. Today I'm going to go liquidate my XRP holdings, let's say. I know friends don't let friends buy XRP, but that was my first coin because I didn't know any better. But it's
there's a study that shows the people who buy XRP tend to be rich and more highly educated than other people.
I like that. Well, I'm up. At one point in time, I was up 10x. Now I'm only up 2.5x. So I think I'm just gonna finally take my investment out, and let's say I'm gonna invest it into Firo. How would I go about buying Firo? And then how would I go about burning it? Explain the process to me.
Right. So, I mean, there are many places that you can get Firo. Of course, we're on Binance, we're on Huobi, we're on Bittrex. If you don't want to go through KYC, there are several decentralized exchanges to get it on, like Atomic DEX. Even you can get it on Binance Smart Chain as well. There are many options there. So you can even go to places like changenow.io, StealthX, and all these are swapping services that don't require KYC, and they even allow you to purchase using your credit card or stuff like that. So these swapping services, of course, with a percentage fee, but hey, it's an option as well. So I guess we are supported with all the major exchanges, with the exception of Coinbase, because Coinbase kind of hates privacy coins. That's why they don't list Monero, right? But yeah, so you get the Firo, you download our wallet, all right? You receive the Firo into your wallet, and you just press this button, go anonymize, right? And those coins will get burnt automatically. And at any time, let's say I want to send some Firo to Max, right? And all I have to do is just click send, and it will take the private coins from that, the black hole, redeem it, and then it automatically sends it to Max address. So those funds that appear in Max address have no identifiable source.
That's astonishing. That's astonishing tech. I am so happy you are on this show, because I think you're going to have a lot of people interested in Firo. Where would they go to find more about it, Reuben?
You can go to Firo.org, which has all our social media links. We're pretty active on Telegram and Discord. We're also really active on Twitter, which is also FIROORG. So just look it up. And
what about Telegram? Because I know that this Uncle Vigilante community is very prolific on Telegram. So is it just Firo.org?
It's Firo Project, and then there's Firo Project.
Firo Project. So I'm just going to think out of the box a little bit, because that's what I do. And when you're talking about putting money into a black hole and then being able to get it back from the black hole, I'm wanting to see if there is a way, because I have 4 daughters and a wife, and all of my money seems to go into a black hole. And I'm wondering if you can help me.
That one you can't redeem it.
No, God, I was looking for one golden nugget out of this interview, Reuben. I was sitting there, I had so much internal hope, and then you crushed my dreams. But no, this is fantastic.
That's a real black hole.
So tell me, Reuben. I know the word. I've heard the word. I've read. I've gone and I've done my work, Raphael. Tell me about Lelantis. What is Lelantis? Or Lelantis?
Yeah, Lelantis. Yeah.
Spell it.
So Lelantus.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about that. What is that?
So Lelantis is what provides our privacy. It's our very own privacy protocol. Our own research team created it, and it actually is a significant privacy innovation, because there aren't that many privacy protocols for blockchains right now.
Okay.
There's basically, to understand how significant it is, let's kind of look at the privacy landscape just as a whole on the blockchain. We have Ring CT, which is what is used by Monero and many, many other coins. All right. That's one. Then you have, the ZK Snark stuff, which is used by Zcash, used by Horizon, used by Pirate. All of that is another group. You have Mimblewimble, used by Grin, Beam, Epic Cash, right? And then you have Lelantis, which is basically currently just used by us, but it is one of the major privacy protocols out there. And even now, Monero is actually using our work to come up with their new privacy protocol called Triptych. So it's actually based off our work. And similarly, even Beam, they have modified our work and created something called Lelantis Mimblewimble, which is also based off our work. And so this is really exciting, because unlike ZK, so it's kind of in between, because stuff like Monero, or even to a certain extent Mimblewimble, what they call it is the kind of the type of privacy they provide is decoy model, where I'm hiding my transaction in a sea of other decoy. It's like in aircraft, like a jet fighter, you fire chaff, right? Like
Yeah.
you're trying to make it confuse the missile that there are many aircrafts when there's actually one aircraft, right? So similarly in decoy, or the way that I like to explain it is like farts in a lift, right? Like if I fart in the lift and I'm only one in there, I can either drag a lot of people in the lift with me, or I want to find everyone that wants to fart and I drag them into the lift and we all fart at the same time. So it is not very clear who farted what. Right?
I love you.
Yeah. So that's what we call like a decoy model, right? The real transaction, the real fart is still there, but you're kind of like layering on it, right?
I just want to know what the receiving address is for that fart in the lift.
I don't know if I can think of what.
There's someone who gets on the lift and goes. And then aren't there some remnants that other people? So it's not the perfect analogy, but I love it. It's so funny.
It's easy to explain, right? So it's kind of like decoy models are about like trying to hide your fart in the sea of other farts or other people, right? The way that our technology works, or the way like ZK Snarks works, is kind of a bit more magical, I guess, which also comes with different trade-offs. But how it works is kind of like making your fart disappear in the lift, and then at any time in the future, then make it appear, right? So now you are not.
So this is perfect for me because I'm that ornery kind of guy, and maybe I've been guilty a time or two to save my fart until I get to the lobby. And when the door opens, I let it go, and then I leave, and other people come on.
Yeah,
and they're looking at each other like, "Oh my God!" So,
so yeah, I mean, like the zero knowledge proof type of systems, like in ZK Snarks, or like even with Lelantus and stuff like that, is like making your fart disappear. And you can choose at any time to make it appear. So like maybe 2 years later, it appears, and then the people are like, it's not just the people in the lift, it's like anyone who went into the lift could have made that fart, right? But now, even with like, for example, in Zcash Z to Z transactions,
the show, I've never tried it on the show.
Or even in like Lelantus version 2, I don't even have to make the fart appear. I can pass the right to redeem that fart to someone else. And that's really like the ultimate privacy, right? That means I don't even have to make that fart appear. I can just like, here, you can redeem this fart later, and no one knows, what just happened, right? But you always have that right. So that's kind of like the ultimate privacy, right? Where you're not even exposing the fart. It's just like passing that right to
anyone
redeem.
Launched a coin called Fart? I have to believe somebody has. If not, they need.
I don't know.
They need it's their base technology. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much haters that, like people call you shit coin and whatnot. I prefer to be called fart coin.
That analogy, then, what would Mimble Wimble be?
Oh, Max is going to hate me. It's about basically finding everyone who wants to fart at the same time, putting them all in the lift together, and we all fart at the same time. And they're like, oh, I don't know whose fart is who. I just see a lot of farts. It's all being joined in this one huge cloud of farts. So yeah, I know. Max can attest to the accuracy of that.
Max, why don't you chime in here?
He's speechless.
He's probably on mute. He's probably shaking his head. Max, are you there? He may have had to take a call. This is so funny.
Hey, sorry. No, I had you on mute. I was laughing. What I was going to say is that.
Oh, we lost.
With you two gentlemen, it would be an honor to sniff your farts.
Okay, so tell us about Mimble Wimble.
No, anyway, I think reasonable people can. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay, bad connection. Yeah, so reasonable. Frustrating. This is terrible.
Okay, reasonable people.
All right, test 1, 2.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay.
Reasonable people don't fart at each other's faces.
All right, Max, figure it out and come back here shortly. So
Essentially,
oh,
when you have a surveillance chain, a political money system like BTC that's increasingly moving from proof of work to proof of stake, then
I think it's proof of work, proof of stake, and now we have proof of stink.
Yeah. Shout out to a project called Manure-O that works based on proof of shitty memes.
Okay.
So Danny Sassam is working on that. What we can all agree on is more privacy is better. Surveillance is not what we want. And so as long as it doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, it matters whether it catches mice. And so I know, Uncle V, you know where we stand on this, is that any project that arrives at privacy, hell, even if it's optional privacy like a Zcash, there's many ways to make a meaningful contribution. And so I, for one, find a lot to like in even projects that maybe don't innovate on the technical layer. Like R, as an example, was able to bring 10,000 people into a community in short order and build some esprit de corps and create some value. So to me, that type of criticism reminds me of like Michael Dell didn't build the technology, he just built a better way to distribute it. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation. There's many ways to arrive at the same result. And if we work together, we'll be stronger than if we work against each other, because really we agree on a lot more than we disagree on. And so I would just also add that we've looked at Lelantis as kind of a bolt-on for that like sort of ultra high grade use case. I don't know what the demand is, but Firo has it, Beam has it, and we can get there through an Aquamenti type approach of aggregation or a Lelantis type way. I think we've got a lot of growing to do before we would need to be doing that kind of a stuff. And so for right now, we're entirely happy with our flavor of fart protection.
So speaking of that, Reuben, so the way that I have come to understand cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, because I really couldn't figure out at the beginning, is how in the hell are you applying any kind of value to this? I mean, what makes a blockchain valuable? And I finally got it maybe over the last 2 weeks that in any blockchain, and I may not have this right, feel free to correct me, but it becomes a collection of energy. And energy is contributed to any blockchain through, I think, 4 things. Sweat equity. I mean, I think that is the most underappreciated aspect of all of this, because so many of you started your projects without your hand out. You just led with your chin, and in trying to create something that there's no guarantee that it's going to work or it's going to be widely adopted. So sweat equity goes into any great blockchain. That's 1. 2 is you can mine it. So it takes energy to be able to mine it. It takes brain power to be able to mine it. 3 is you can buy it. We all expend our own energies to get our fiat to where that then becomes its own form of stored energy that you're transferring to a blockchain when you buy it. And the 4th is to earn it. And I think that's probably one of the more underutilized ways in some of the privacy coins, because you don't have the wide adoption. But I was just listening to a Pump podcast this morning to where you had a football player who is taking not his salary from the NFL, but he's taking, like, I'm talking over $10 million worth of endorsements. This is Saquon Barkley, running back for the Jets. All of his non-NFL salary, he only takes in Bitcoin, and but he does it through, oh my God, it's going to come to me. He does it through, it'd be like taking it on PayPal, where I didn't want to burst his bubble, but you don't own the keys, buddy. in that model that you're talking about, it'll come to me what it is.
Well, it'd be more actually like Venmo, because in addition to it being conditional that they can vaporize the money at any time, but everyone can see that you got it. So now parasitic family members, long lost aunts and uncles will come and hit you up for a handout. So there's some downsides to operating on a surveillance blockchain that he may come to face in time.
Oh, it bothers me that I don't know. Anyway, it was Pomp released the video today, but it was the founder of, it would be like the founder of PayPal, trying to get everyone to take their salary in Bitcoin and have it go directly to PayPal. But the idea was right. And it's kind of like Michael Saylor, right idea, wrong coin. Can you tell us, Reuben, what is the dollar figure, the fiat dollar figure of Firo today, if somebody wanted to go on an exchange?
Well, I mean, I really don't. I mean, I have no problem saying what it is. It's like $4.73, $4.73 right now. But I feel that, especially for newbies, we always, the unit price is not what matters, right? Because
unpack that, because for us, it's the only thing we know, because we buy things at the right time of the year and it goes up. Like when I got in, I rode those four months to where I thought I was King frickin' Kong, man. I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. And then you go through the pullback and you start realizing that, hey, all those people that I talked into getting into crypto right before the pullback, I feel like a real schmuck right now. So everything is centered around that unit price in our world, unfortunately. So help us think differently.
Okay, so I mean, the percentage gains, percentage losses, they're all real. I mean, like when the coin goes up, goes down, the percent. I mean, if I make a 30% gain, you make a 30% gain. But the wrong idea is to take a look at the coin and say like, oh, this coin's at 10 cents, it's cheap.
Right.
And that's what I call about the unit price bias, right? Because like a lot of people see it at like $4.73 and they're like, oh, it's not as cheap as Dogecoin, right? Or I only needed to go up like a couple of cents and then I make a lot of money, right? But the real thing is that you have to take a look at the supply, the circulating supply, and not just the circulating. I mean, yes, look at the circulating supply, look at what's the unit price, but at the end of the day, what's the total market cap? What is the quality of the exchanges they are on, right? So there are actually a lot of like crappy coins, which may have a higher ranking than us, but they don't actually have real liquidity, right? They're on just some unknown exchange, probably being wash traded, that they can move the market cap up and down, right? But unit price, I mean, it's a very common mistake, right? Everyone like went into Dogecoin because like, oh, it's like couple of cents, it's cheap, but then you realize like, oh my gosh, a dog meme coin is like $11 billion market cap. Is that overvalued or not? I don't know. I mean, I personally think that Dogecoin does have value because it's been around so long and it's been like the OG meme coin. But when you see stuff like Shiba Inu and stuff like that, because as you said, it's all about energy, right? Even if you don't have technology, even if you don't have all of this, if enough people come in and like, I like dogs, I like cats, it doesn't matter. It's going to have value, right? I want to trade dog coin, or like another example of great utility, like, people using it and earning it is like recently people have been talking about Axie Infinity, right? You play a game, you get money, and that's been really, really attractive. So they have really found their niches in what they're doing. Privacy coins, unfortunately, I mean, like, obviously, as a privacy coin, the first kind of people that it would tend to attract are people like criminals, right? I mean, to start with, right? Like even Bitcoin was also used by criminals in the beginning. Not just criminals, but like if it's a tool that will help them, they're gonna use it, like a knife or like or even a car, right? As long as it's gonna help them, they're gonna use it, right? And unfortunately, like a lot of people in Monero, especially, they have been like, they kind of like further that sort of stereotype that if criminals aren't using a privacy coin, there's no value in it. And I really wish they would just stop talking about that. But they talk about ransomware people, darknet people using Monero as a kind of like validation of their adoption, which is, yeah, it is a validation, but it also kind of plays into that you're not doing yourself any favors by painting privacy into this sort of dark, nefarious light. And yeah.
That would be like me going to the bank and asking for $1,500 in cash for a trip, and have anybody deem that dark and nefarious. No,
yeah,
just freaking cash.
And the worst thing is that, like, I mean, even in my local contacts, right? Like, I see all these banks, they're so anal about like, where my money came from and whatnot. Like, I just recently held like some people in the UK about blockchain and stuff, and they paid me like a couple of £100, and my bank wants to know, like, what's this for? Right. And I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? Like, I should be free to do this and that, right? And it's just like really frustrating when every single movement that I do is being queried, and because like, oh yeah, I'm involved in cryptocurrencies. Yeah.
At bottom, Reuben, doesn't this all come down to what do they have against hookers and blow?
Yeah, that's true. No, and I really find it very kind of hypocritical, because who are the biggest money launderers in the world? They're all facilitated by banks. Every major bank has laundered billions of dollars. Like, take a look at HSBC. They knowingly, like, went to launder Mexican, like, Sinaloa drug cartel stuff, and they even facilitated it. What happened to them? Oh, they got just like a little slap on their hand, a fine. And none of these people actually go to jail, right? And yet these are the same kind of institutions talking about, oh, cryptocurrencies need AML and stuff like that, like anti-money laundering, KYC. I'm like, you guys are the biggest money launderers, because you will do it as long as the price is right and you think you can get away with it.
Yeah. So I just question. So can people I understand that mining, Firo, is not a heavy lift, right? Can you tell us how to mine?
Yeah, I mean, basically all you have to do is that you need a decent graphics card, I guess a relatively modern graphics card with over 4 gigs of RAM. And all you have to do is you download a miner, you point it to a mining pool, you put an address that you want your mining rewards to be on, and you just mine it. So we are very big believers in proof of work, purely because we feel that it's a kind of fair way to distribute coins. And we also find it important that it is not just that it is mineable, but that the fact that you can mine it with what we call commodity hardware. Because, like, for example, this is really important, because people say, oh, mining, everything is equal. No, different kind of mining algorithms can target different type of hardware. So I can design a mining algorithm to target CPUs. I can design a mining algorithm to target GPUs, right. Or I can design an algorithm to be ASICs, basically specialized machines, right? So Bitcoin currently is being mined almost purely by ASICs, right? And ASICs are basically application-specific integrated circuits, machines that are only designed to do one thing and one thing very well. Now, that sounds great, but the problem with that is that it tends to be kind of like a monopoly, because the people who can produce these machines aren't a lot, right? Like, there'll be like maybe a handful of these companies, like the Bitmains, the Watt miners of the world, right? And then you have export restrictions, you have all this type of stuff. And you also have to realize that it's also kind of counterintuitive that once they reach a certain size, why should they sell a money-making machine to you? They can be taking those machines and mine it themselves, right? Because so when they sell it to you, it's only because, like, oh yeah, I've already factored in my loss opportunity cost, or I want some cash flow, but I could use this and build my own mining farms as well. And that kind of leads to massive centralization, which isn't great. Like, we feel that that's kind of the antithesis of what it should be. So that's why we believe in graphics cards. And we actually, people might say, like, oh, why don't you do CPU mining, right? Like, why don't you just mine with your CPU processors? Why do I need a graphics card? And like, for example, Monero uses that path and focuses on CPUs. The thing is that there are a lot of people who kind of control server farms or even rent, like they call it botnets, right? Botnets are basically they deploy this virus, and this virus infects like thousands and thousands of computer, and they're kind of like their slaves to the botnet operator. And this botnet operators then uses this stuff to mine cryptocurrency or do something, or to DOS attacks and stuff like that. That's also a form of centralization because it's not actually many people. It's just like one guy controlling many of these botnets, right? Or he has like an idle server farm that exploits all of that. Graphics cards aren't really in that same category, but yes, you can go and buy lots of graphics cards and build your own farm, but you are kind of on the same footing as other people, right? Like I can buy 1,000 graphics cards, you can buy 1,000 graphics cards, I can buy one, but there's no real advantage to buying 1,000 graphics cards versus buying one. Like it's the relative cost is still roughly the same. You may get some bulk discount, but it's not like, oh yeah, I have access to this ASIC. If you don't have this like special machine, you're going to be 1,000 times slower. So I think that's really important when we talk about fair distribution. Yeah.
Tell me about your blockchain. And one thing that I've learned through Max talking about kind of the difference between what Monero does with the ring signatures and what Mimblewimble does. When you're thinking about scaling, that becomes an important component, because with the ring signatures, it becomes a bloated blockchain with mass adoption. And that just contributes to a slower transaction. So with yours, can you talk us through what happens? Are you subject to that bloat, or because it goes into a black hole, you're lean and mean?
I think this is a kind of like an argument that's often very simplistic, where people say like, oh yeah, your blockchain is like X number of gigabytes and therefore it can't scale, right? And I think, Bitcoin has a lot to blame for that, because they have been promoting that narrative that you cannot scale on layer one. That means you need all this Lightning Network and all this other stuff to scale, right? And basically, I mean, like Bitcoin's bottleneck is kind of like arbitrary, right? You have that 1 megabyte block size limit, right? So we have a 2 megabyte block size limit, and we are operating on a 5-minute block time, so we can already deal with like 4 times the amount of capacity as Bitcoin can. So I don't think that really is a big issue for us right now. And we feel that as blockchains get bigger, I mean, you can see our storage devices are like in the terabytes right now, right? Like storage is also growing, internet speeds are growing faster. So the key idea is to make sure that the rate of growth of our blockchain and the rate of growth of our scalability is in line with the hardware growth. So in that sense, of course, scalability isn't our number one concern, because we are nowhere hitting even near the max capacity that it is. But if we can already deal with 4 times the amount of transactions as Bitcoin, that would already be like a massive success. And we, unlike Bitcoin, are not afraid to do hard forks as long as there's a lot of community consensus to allow this, right? I do think that this whole ding dong about like, oh, we shouldn't increase the block size is just a distraction to fund like a silly narrative that Bitcoin should only be a SOV and not a medium of exchange. I think that's kind of unfortunate.
Community consensus. Tell us about your community, because that's one thing too that I have been really attracted to from changing my mindset on what the value of a blockchain is and pivoting to contributed energy. And so a lot of that contributed energy comes from a community. So tell us about your community and how people might get involved who could be watching, and are newbies welcome?
Yes, I mean, definitely newbies are welcome. I mean, obviously, we don't expect everyone to be able to code and contribute to our code. Our our code is quite complex, and like especially our privacy tag requires like PhDs and stuff like that. But you know, I mean, we have like lots of like fun competitions from many aspects, like oh yeah, you know, produce some memes and get some Firo, right? Or like produce an interesting tool, or like, you know, help promote or retweet this, or even there are like what we call liquidity mining campaigns where people can, let's say like I have some Firo, I have some US dollars, I want to, you know, provide some liquidity that is like community provided liquidity that people can buy and sell it. You also get rewarded for that. So these are ways that if people are willing to, like, you know, sit down, read a little bit, they can easily get set up, right? So we obviously you know, want to encourage community contribution. And I think also another way that we really want we are very transparent, so we have like, you know, regular development updates. You know, all our code is open source. You know, we always have like a regular like community meetings once a month or so, so anyone can come in and say like, what's my idea, what's your view of this and stuff like that, and we will definitely take it into consideration. And some may say that this is kind of like fake governance, but in a way, well, I don't want to take too much time about it, but I'll let you lead and see where you want to take this discussion. Yeah.
So here's one thing. Just kind of, I'm a little bit triggered because last year when I started talking about the V word under a different channel.
What's the V word?
VIRUS. Unfortunately, I'm
okay.
afraid of saying it out loud. And I had 6 channels banned because I was talking about it, and so and then recently when I got put in timeout for a week on this channel, which is about cryptocurrency, just because I said it and was not in a positive way. And so now I hate the fact that I have to censor myself. And so my question to you is, look into the future, your crystal ball. When do you think that big tech is going to start censoring even just the discussion of crypto, or in our case, perhaps this conversation, crypto related to privacy?
It's actually happening right now, right? I mean, there is an overarching war against cryptocurrencies, you know, because especially as countries are trying to, previously it wasn't that bad, but now that countries are looking at their own central bank digital currencies, they really want cryptocurrency gone, right? I mean, we have seen like, you know, like for example, Elizabeth Warren going, oh yeah, you know, we have to regulate this, you know, the SEC, and it's like blaming the SEC when the SEC doesn't actually have laws to deal with it. So like, whose job is it? Then it goes back to you, right, Senator? Not the SEC. If the SEC doesn't have laws to deal with it, it's not the SEC's job to make new laws, right? It's the lawmakers, right? And then you have the new the Financial Action Task Force. They have been coming up with guidelines on how to deal with cryptocurrencies, and they have been like, some of the proposals and their recommendations have been almost borderline ridiculous, where they kind of envision to say, some exchanges may decide not to even allow anybody to have their own, not to accept funds for people who use their own personal wallets. All funds should come from custodied KYC wallets. I mean, like, and the stuff like, if it has privacy enhancing technology, you probably should not accept it. So there's obviously this, like, you know, this war against cryptocurrencies, and especially privacy cryptocurrencies. I mean, even, and it's sometimes so obviously wrong. Like for example, what happened in Japan. So Japan actually bans all privacy coins. Korea also bans all privacy coins. Australia as well, some sort of soft ban on all privacy coins. And the one in Japan was particularly ridiculous because they banned privacy coins because NEM, which is this coin called New Economy Movement. I think now they also have another chain called Symbol. There was a huge exchange hack on CoinCheck, and NEM was being not NEM itself was hacked, but NEM was being removed from the exchange and stuff like that, right? So the fault there is with the exchange, right? Because they didn't have proper security practices, right? And NEM has no privacy mechanisms whatsoever, so they could lock it down and whatnot, right? But the government used that as an excuse to ban privacy coins because saying, oh, these hack funds could have been laundered by these privacy coins. I'm like, you should have been like fucking up the exchange because like they didn't do their work and NEM doesn't have any privacy, and yet you go after the privacy coins. Like that's kind of ridiculous, right? Yeah, I mean, that's so ridiculous.
Like, oh, I'm going to take a risk. That's kind of like, you know, the government manufacturing an excuse to be able to come out with a narrative that's, you know, it's just going to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and they're targeting healthy people who are asymptomatic silent assassins, when you would say it's freaking ridiculous, dude. You know, hey, I have a question, and this is probably going to piss some people off because it's going to violate their sensibilities.
Okay.
Because the only way that we've been trained as newbies to be able to get privacy coins, you know, it seems, is to use an exchange called Trade Ogre, decentralized.
Right. Right. It's not a decentralized exchange.
I'm sorry. See, so I'm a newbie. So tell me, what would you call that? What would you call it?
It's a centralized exchange with no KYC, operating on a kind of questionable jurisdiction, I guess.
So here's my question. Again, I'm just putting on my day job hat. I look at this and I think there's a whole lot of people putting a whole lot of money on that exchange. Mm-hmm. And at any point in time, is it possible that, let's just say that Trade Ogre played long ball and they're like, we're just going to do our job day in and day out, do our job until this point, and then we're going to and then leave and go live a billionaire's lifestyle. Is that a risk?
It's a very real risk. It's, I mean, Trade Ogre has been around for a while, but I mean, many exchanges even before this did the same thing, right? Like, I don't know, like Cryptopia, Cryptsy, and all this other, like, you know, they were like really large and popular exchanges, and they just kind of like disappear. I mean, Cryptopia didn't totally disappear, but a lot of it, like these people, especially if you don't know who they are, if you know, with centralized exchanges, it is good to know who these people are so that they can't just run away. But no one really knows who runs Trade Ogre.
That one keeps me up at night now. You know, it's because I've been now through a cycle of thinking my tree grows to the sky and that I'm just really good at this crypto stuff, when it was just the fact that I got in at the right time. And then, I held on to everything for dear life. And I learned the hard lesson of, hey, sometimes you need to take profits, but I held on to everything as it goes down too. But it just really started getting me to think about the fact that I love privacy, and it just seems like the only really efficient, easy way to get it is on Trade Ogre. And I was just thinking one day, I'm like, holy shit, is there anything that, I mean, what if I woke up and some of my coins that are on there with some sell orders, just trying to get a little bit of my money back, is nobody's buying into, by the way. What if they just picked up their ball and went home? Then I'd really be fucked. So it's like,
I mean, that's why they you know, you should be always like, I guess, like, I'm not saying anything bad about Trade Ogre. I mean, I'm just stating facts that I think we don't know who. Well, you know, I don't know that they are scammers. There's no evidence to show that they are going to run off with money. But it's a possibility, right? It is a possibility,
and that's what in my journey in this channel, that's all I'm doing is I'm talking out loud. Other people can make their own decisions, but this is something that we should all think about. And at minimum, it got me thinking about, you know, I need to get my coins off of Trade Ogre.
Yep.
And no keys, no coins.
Yeah.
I need to get them off and screw the sell orders that are in. Let's just get them safe and protected, because they could pick up their ball and go home.
Yeah. So what we have been looking at are more like, there's a kind of like a spectrum. Generally, the more decentralized it is, the more fiddly it is, because like of the decentralized nature, stuff doesn't work as well, right? So we try to cover the spectrum, right? Yeah, yes, we operate on Binance, one of the largest centralized exchanges, and it's great. The liquidity is great, lots of users, right?
Yeah.
But you also need to have those decentralized options, right? And something that we've been really looking at was something called atomic DEX, which is kind of a development, I think, kind of like linked to the Komodo team. And basically what they allow is this exchange where there's no KYC, there's no centralized infrastructure, and basically people can trade like sort of just like an order book and whatnot, and the coins can be swapped using atomic swaps. So atomic swaps means that I don't have to go through an exchange. It's kind of like you give me a Bitcoin, I give you a Firo, and then we lock it, and then it just like goes across. So I get the Bitcoin, you get the Firo.
A huge game changer.
Yes, and this infrastructure is like they did do some stress tests to show like how scalable it is. So far, it works, and so far it's promising. Of course, I don't know how it would deal with like Binance level type of traffic, but definitely I think it can do like atomic.
Is that something just kind of amongst the friendlies, the inside baseball, like you, with Epic Cash and R, to where you guys can be working on some, and maybe you already are, conversations that says, let's do a atomic swap pair for all of our communities?
So the thing with atomic DEX is that all the pairs, you can just create it yourself. You don't actually need permission from the atomic DEX team, and that's great. That's a true decentralized exchange, because a fake decentralized exchange means that I need your permission to be listed as a pair or whatnot, right? Yeah. True decentralized exchanges means that anyone can list anything, right? Yeah.
Oh, God, I love it.
So there are, of course, some of stuff that
it's getting in the way of that becoming like widely adopted or accessible to us.
Right now, I mean, with atomic DEX, currently this major weakness is liquidity. There isn't that much liquidity yet.
How does one, again, newbie question. So I hear liquidity all the time, and so tell me, when you're launching a product or something like this, how do you get liquidity into it? Because you just don't fart on a lift and poof, liquidity's there, right? Or maybe that's technologically possible.
Yeah, I mean, liquidity is basically, people buying and selling, right? And there are places for people to buy and sell, and that there's enough, Firo and US dollars on both sides of the book, and that's what liquidity is, right? Okay. And obviously, I mean, once the money is deposited into an exchange, they can do whatever it is. They're not actually swapping the coins, right? It's just their own little internal database going like, oh yeah, that guy's get Firos, that guy's goes Bitcoin, but it's all the coins don't actually move until when they withdraw. It's just like a statement of account, kind of like how a bank works, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
sure, that makes sense.
With atomic DEX, the coins are actually being swapped. Where that means from user to user, or like similar to Uniswap, right? Like on Ethereum, like you have the most popular, decentralized exchange is Uniswap. When I swap a coin for another, they're not using atomic swap capabilities because it's all like Ethereum tokens in their own ecosystem. But basically, it's like I put in my Ethereum, I get another coin. I don't have to touch an exchange. It's just the wallet, the money goes directly into a wallet that I control the keys to. So I do think that's the ideal future it is. And there are decentralized exchange houses like Uniswap. The problem with Uniswap is that it only supports like Ethereum tokens, right? Which is only a subset, which obviously has no privacy. But now there are new technology stuff like TorChain or even AnySwap, which allows cross-chain decentralized exchanges with this kind of like Uniswap capability as well. So we are also looking to integrating to this so that people can place their money into this liquidity pools, and people can swap against it without worrying about it being delisted and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's just a game changer. So you as a project steward, then tell me the process about when you come up with an idea like that, how do you go about testing it and implementing it and then getting it adopted within the community? Because it's all organic, right? It's not like a corporation to where you have your, list of things that you're meeting every week to be able to say, hey, you're fired if you didn't get this done. How does all this happen organically?
Could you give me a specific example of what you're asking? Like in what aspect?
I guess, and maybe Max is the better person to ask this question to. Is I have a little bit of inside baseball on what Max is working on as far as his vision of it, not just being Epic Cash, but it's being ECR token, it's being EUSD, it's being his DEX exchange, and all of these things. So I'm kind of witnessing within the community of how that all happens and how much teamwork it actually takes to ultimately guide something one way, and about how a project can stall because there's not enough community energy that's being put into it, and then it starts advancing again. And so I'm just curious, is that the same across all chains, to where when you, like right now, the atomic swaps or the atomic DEX, I don't know when that started, but how do you move that ball forward so it actually becomes accomplished, I guess, when you have a CEO telling someone what to do?
So I think it differs from different project to different project. So the more decentralized it is, the more harder it is to get stuff going. But in certain types of instances, especially if you have a lot of community that are developer oriented, like let's say let's say I like Monero, right? Let's say I like Monero and I want to see this type of integration, right? But there is a core team, but it's just like, I guess you always kind of have a core team. If you don't have a core team, then you need people who are able to code and say like, I'm going to build this integration myself because I want it, right? And that's a really big if, because I would say that's a very, very fine line, because when people aren't being paid to do stuff, they're going to do it on their own time. And there's no kind of, you can't force them to finish it. There's no deadline, right?
Right. There's no accountability on the project list of a due date, or you get fired kind of thing. Like,
correct. Yeah. With Firo, I mean, we do have a dev fund where we take part of the block reward. So obviously we tell the community that we are really focused on all this core stuff. Like we want to push the Atlantis technology, we want to do this stuff. There's certain things that we'll push, but there are other stuff like atomic DEX integration or Tor chain integration. There are things that we can outsource, or we have what we call a community crowdfunding system, where people can say, I want to do this, but I want to be paid for it. So I can request for funds. And therefore, people say it's a good idea. The core team may or may not look at it, even if the core team doesn't fund it. But if other people say, oh yeah, I like this idea, let's go ahead with it, that can move forward, right? Yeah. Because we are not we're not like Zcash, where we have millions at our disposal. We don't get that much money every month, right? So we have to be very what are we going to do? We need to focus on this stuff, and things that we can outsource. We outsource, for example, the atomic DEX integration. We're not doing it ourselves. We just tell hey, atomic DEX team, do you want to do it? It's yeah, we'll be happy to do it. We pay them, they integrate us. So I don't think, and we, of course, before we did that, we did a community poll, are you guys actually going to use these decentralized exchanges? What would you like to see? Then I think that's kind of the way to go. There's no hard and fast rule, but there are sometimes where I think I actually really want to touch on Grin, because Grin is an example of a fair launch coin, that didn't have a dev fund, and you had this anonymous founder, right? And in my opinion, Green has kind of failed. I mean, like, you know, like you take a look at its market cap, its adoption, and it's even now, like all its core council members are leaving or resigning, and it's kind of like a shell of what it once was.
Okay.
And we are kind of like approaching a stage where it is very hard to do a fair launch coin unless you have VC backing, unless you have some dev fund, because or unless you are some really low effort coin like a Shiba coin, where I just need to have some nice graphics, create the ERC20 token, get a bunch of influencers to hype it. I mean, that's separate. But if you want to do like something that's technically challenging, it's not easy, because that requires a lot of money up front, right?
Yes.
And Green is kind of sad because they had all the elements they needed to succeed. They had a lot of hype. Everyone was talking about Mimblewimble. I mean, Max probably knew, like it was like the best thing to come out for privacy coins. Is the new thing that's going to surpass everything, right? And then you have the whole mystique of the anonymous developer with the whole like Harry Potter references and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. They even had enough money to have GreenCon. It was even like there. Bitcoin.
I was at GreenCon.
Yeah, the GreenCon 1, and then that was it, right?
I was at GreenCon 0 in San Mateo. Oh, GreenCon. GreenCon 0, they called it, yeah.
So they had all these maximalists, or like even Bitcoin core developers like Andrew Poistra, all the heavy hitters promoting this tech, right?
Yeah.
And people say, oh yeah, so decentralized. But what they did really killed their coin, because basically, Ignatius Peverell, if I'm not mistaken, he was the pseudonym of the founder. He appointed a centrally appointed council of trusted people, and these people controlled the fund, right? So although there was no like development fund, a lot of like OGs donated like 50, 80 Bitcoin to them, and they had the money, they had the hype, but because of the way it was run by this centrally people that were kind of really full of themselves. I'm just going to put it out there. They were like, you know, we don't think this is right. We don't think this is right. They didn't listen to the community. When Ivan Bugatti like pointed out some issues with the privacy of Green's implementation of Mimblewimble, they were like, oh, but we're not a privacy coin. We're all about scalability. I'm like, you know, it's kind of bullshit, right? Like it's the way they ran it was very exclusive. And they basically disenfranchise, you know, their community members. And I find it really sad, because we really need a fair launch coin to do well, that actually has technical capability. And Green had all of that. But if you were not within their inner circle, you're not going to get any shit done. And it was just kind of really disgusting to see this thing happen. Yeah.
This is a 101 channel. Can you give us the basics of what is a fair launch coin?
Who, me or Max? Sorry.
You.
Me.
What would you, how would you describe to a newbie a fair launch coin?
A fair launch coin is one where there's no like kind of like pre-allocation. Of course, that fair launch is like a spectrum, right? I guess the most fair coins are like even the founder, I am going to launch this coin. I'm giving everyone very like huge heads up. I'm going to tell everyone about it. Like, I'm going to launch this coin on this date, and everyone, like, you know, I'm going to promote it really heavily, because if I just launch it quietly and like secretly mine and then only make it big later, that's not really fair launch. So that means everyone knows about the launch of the coin, everyone knows the rules, and everyone has an equal opportunity to get in. There's no like insider special price, right? If it's like mining, everyone is on the same footing, right? Everyone knows the algorithm, everyone has to mine, right? So that's what I would call a fair launch coin, where there's no one person sort of like, or a group of people that get like insider pricing or allocations to them. Yeah.
Oh, that makes all kinds of sense. Max, do you have anything to add on a fair launch coin?
Yeah, that's how we did it. So we launched the test net in April, then mainnet in September. So that's 5 months. We had over 100 days in a very widely publicized countdown. There was no ICO, no pre-mine, no founder allocation. And we also did multi-algo and multi-operating system. We ended up supporting Linux, Mac, and Windows for mining at launch on 60% CPU, 38% GPU, and 2% ASICs. And so we really did a lot of thinking about how do we make it as fair as possible. We studied the recent launch of Raven before us, and we really thought that they set a new bar for a fair launch standard. But it turns out that Overstock.com and Patrick Burns Group had a lot of entanglements behind the scenes that later kind of came out to challenge them. And so, yeah, we agree. Governance is a tricky thing that will take a long time for the crypto community to figure out. But fair launch is pretty straightforward. Reuben, I was going to ask you, did Firo take any pre-mine or ICO investment, any angel, any venture capital, anything like that? Because we didn't do any of those things.
We had two guys, angel investor, one which is Roger Ver, but it was like $50,000 US. So that means a total of $100,000 US. So I guess if that isn't a pre, I mean, you can call it a pre-mine. It's not really. It's like we got that. We had the dev reward, right? So we do have, we started with a 20% dev reward. I negotiated to get the founders to drop it down to 12%, and now it's currently at 15% of the block reward. So we do have a continuous funding that comes from the block reward. And I guess the idea with that is that, you know, some people say that it's not fair, but first of all, it is disclosed. And the fact that by having a dev reward, it's a trade-off, right? On the one hand, you do have more responsibility on the core dev team to push the technology forward. And I would argue that if you're doing anything that's like really technical, you kind of need that at least for the first few years to kind of like bootstrap it.
So
but then
sorry to interrupt, Reuben, but does the dev fee go away? Because ours is 6.6% right now. It launched at 8.8, and it goes down 1.1% per year, so that by 2028 it's at 0. I noticed you said it went from 20 to 12 to 15. What's it going to be 5 years from now?
So the way that we have told our community is that, you know, we extended the dev reward for additional 4 years, but there's a check-in point at 2 years. So in another year from now, the community will decide, do you still want the dev fund, or do you think like this is it? So if this is it, then the dev fund ceases, everything goes to the miners and the master nodes, and, you know, there's no more central dev fund. But we had a poll, we had we had about a year of community meetings and polls for this, you know, to decide the 15%, because we were like, look, you know, this is roughly how much we need to operate. This is what happens, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was like, okay, yeah, you know, let's extend it for a bit more for 4 years at 15% to see how it goes. But then I said, I'm going to put it out there, and we have another checkpoint at 2 years, so that if you're not happy with us, you can drop the dev reward, and we just let it like be totally decentralized. And well, I don't think we're ready for that, but it's up to the community to decide that.
I have a question for both of you. And I don't want to use any names here, but I do want to use an example. Again, just so that us newbies can just be really mindful and careful out there. But we need to think more than just the story of a coin and the unit price, because you can have a coin that launches, might slap the name privacy on it, and let's say that 80% of it was pre-mined. There could be a universe where the people behind that could drive up the price by buying their own coins, and thus there gets to be some buzz on it. So other people start buying, ultimately to buy into those founding coin sell walls. And I just want to touch on that. Is that a risk? And if it is a risk, what do we do as newbies to be able to study and discern on which coins to be careful. Like if it has an 80% pre-mine or if it has X, just take a pass.
Well, I mean, take a look at Ripple, right? It had like, I don't know, 60-70% pre-mine, pre-allocated to them, and they're doing fine.
Well, no, Reuben, they're not doing fine because they woke up one day and the SEC tried to throw their leaders in prison and put them out of business, and
I'm
most
pretty
exchanges on
sure
the planet delisted. So, they're living to fight another day, but they have a hassle.
Like you're in an echo chamber. I don't know if you can get closer to your mic.
Yeah, sorry, 1 second.
I mean, like, yeah, you can say that. I mean, take a look at EOS, right? They got away with a freaking slap on their hand. Like, they raised like billions of dollars and only had to pay a few million to get out, right?
It was 4.1 billion raised in an illegal deal, and they got away for 27 million plus about 10 for the lawyers. It was a gorgeous deal from their perspective.
Yeah. So
bravo, guys.
I think Ripple will do the same. So, I mean, the thing is that unfortunately, the market doesn't give a shit. I mean, people talk about, oh yeah, we should be worried about all this thing. Does Solana have like a great distribution? No. Does like Hex or like Shiba? No, none of this have great distribution mechanisms. It is only important on paper because. So this was actually an argument. I mean, I don't like the idea of having like stuff, being controlled by a few whales. But the reality is that a lot of times it's very helpful. Like I remember that. So when we had our first seed investors, right, that only didn't provide a lot of money, but so it wasn't Roger. It was this guy called Tim. He's a Chinese dude, and what had happened was the co-founder of Zcoin had run away with all the seed money. So although we had like $100,000, we started with zero because the co-founder ran away with that money. And we needed some sort of funding to continue our development, right? So we found this other guy. His name is Tim, and it's a seed. It's a very public. It was a very kind of public outfalling. So I'm not like saying stuff that people don't know. But what happened was he wanted to centralize control of Zcoin into him and his friends, right? Okay. And he was also manipulating the price. I told him I want to have nothing to do with this, but he was, at times just driving up the price to also basically, create this. It almost felt like a Ponzi, and I could do nothing about it because back then I didn't have a very strong position. I was just a fucking community manager. I was just helping out. So I was kind of given this thing of co-founder because although I joined as a community manager, but because subsequently I kind of like gathered of what was left of it and sort of like rebuilt it back up. So I had a talk. I was like, are you happy to call me a co-founder, even though I didn't technically co-found it? And he's like, yeah, sure. You kind of built this coin, as well. So that's why I'm called a co-founder. But when it started, it was in a really bad shape. Can you imagine our co-founder ran away, within a couple of months, we had a critical flaw and actually, what was the original question about the allocation? So we had to find this seed investor to kind of bail us out, to give us enough money to continue development. And just as recently as 2019, or is it 2019 or 2020? 2020, correct? Yeah, just the end of last year. That whale was trying to do a last-ditch attempt to centralize control with the big guys, and his idea was saying that who gives a crap about the small guys, because it is the big guys that move the markets. It's the big guys that can put the buys and sell and stuff. The small fish can come later, right? Because the biggest importance of the project is the price and nothing else, because you can be a totally shit project, but your price is high and people will give a shit. I mean, I feel that unfortunately there is a degree of truth to this. There are total like stuff like Safe Moon, what the heck, like stuff like Shiba Inu, like what the heck is doing like top 100 market cap, or some even like top 20, top 30, right? When there's really nothing behind it, right?
Yeah.
And he said that because master notes require around 1,000 Firo, so that's about $4,700 right now. Why don't we increase the collateral amount to be 5,000 or 10,000, so that only the rich people can afford these master notes, and therefore it would centralize the holdings to these rich people who would then continue to earn this interest that they earn on the master notes, right? And I was put under a tremendous amount of pressure to give in. So instead of like trying to listen to him, because he was threatening to dump if we did not implement this, and at that point he had control through his own acquisition about 11%, 12% of the supply, which is quite a lot, right?
How do you know? How do you know how much of the supply he has?
Because he's a dumbass, and he consolidated all his funds into a single address on his hardware wallet.
But it's a privacy coin. So how do you track his holdings?
Because he was holding it on the transparent layer.
So okay, so there's a transparent layer and
Yes.
a privacy layer.
Correct. Yes, but
Okay.
then now our wallets are private on by default, but then the exchanges are still using the transparent layer. Got it?
So you're steadily moving,
Yes.
like you're transitioning off of transparent onto always on privacy.
Yes, correct. That's right.
Okay. And
It's
do you
not
know the
trivial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Do you know the percentage currently, like how far along you are? Because when I did the math on Zcash, it was less than 10% used any privacy at all.
Right now, I think if I'm not mistaken, about 20% of funds have gone through into our swap stuff, and it's been steadily rising. We also had a campaign where if you anonymize your coins, we would reward the address that anonymized it. We don't care that if you do it, but it's just increasing the anonymity set. So that really pushed it up.
So about
I
20%.
do think about 20% right now. But remember that because our sets are a lot larger. That means like when I do a transaction with Lelantis right now, my potential anonymity set, or the people that like went into the lift, is about 40,000 right now, and that's continuously growing as well. Which fares well, like when you compare it to something like Monero, which is like 11.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a lot of farts.
And I know
Yeah.
it's not apples to apples, but we've under our current configuration, it's about 1,000 for us. So
Mhm. Yeah. So the idea was, what happened was, I mean, this was a really interesting thing because it was like a big whale that could have really pushed up our price, but
How
the community
pushed up the price. I don't understand. How does a big whale push up a price?
So basically, because you see, like he may own like 10%, 11% of the supply, right? And you just need to create FOMO, right? Where you release some news and then he just like does a huge buy and pushes the price up, right? Because he's already holding most of the coins. There's no one to sell. There's only this small few people to sell. So if you have if most of the supply is being controlled by the whales, right?
Yeah.
And all the whales agree not to sell past a certain price, I push up the price, then I slowly put some onto the market, let the crazy people like, oh my God, this is going up. And they buy in. That's my exit liquidity, right? Yeah.
Right.
So it really makes sense for the whales to sort of centralize control. I mean, it's kind of like what's happening in the Bitcoin now, right? Dump it so that all the weak hands go out, all the whales accumulate, and then once the whales accumulate, they pump it up. Right? Once they pump it up, then everyone else starts FOMOing in, and then that's when they get out. I mean, that's kind of what happens to Bitcoin as well, but it is even more prevalent with smaller coins. I mean, I think this happens with all coins. I'm not involved with it, but I know that it happens, right? Yeah.
So we need to talk about creating FOMO. So this whale that has 10%. So and he wants the price to go up. So
yes,
don't we all want the price to go up on any coin projects that we hold? So
correct.
How does a whale versus just kind of a normal community go about creating FOMO to impact the price increase so that they can then later, I guess, once the FOMO goes in, put a sell order in for some of it and get some liquidity out of it. I just
so a very easy way to do it is to trade with yourself, right? So let's say like if you are a coin that isn't listed on any major exchange, let's say you're only on Trade Ogre.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. I create 2 accounts, I buy and sell among myself and just pump the price up, right? Because
Okay.
it's so easy.
I
So
see. And that was my original question. With these pre-mined coins, if you have a lot of people controlling these pre-mined coins, and it was basically, I was thinking about that because the long story, but the week of the TCV pick, every privacy coin on Trade Ogre was going up, and it just seems like there was some of what you just described going back and forth, and now it makes sense. So thank you for grounding that for me.
I mean, like, you can take a look. It's so ridiculous when you see the amount traded. It sometimes it's like 100% of their market cap traded in one day. Do you think all of that volume is real? That means every single coin had traded hands in that one day. I mean, that's freaking fishy, right? So you can easily, as long as you have the amount that you can like buy and sell and push it up. And as long as you have enough money to sort of like ignore the rest as noise. So that's why the best time to pump a coin is before it's listed on any sort of major exchange, because once it's listed on a major exchange and other people are buying and selling and the distribution is more equal, it becomes hard because every time you pump it, someone else can sell, right? But if all the whales have agreed, I want this to be like a several $1 billion market cap, once it is there, I automatically get all these new exchange listings, which leads to a virtuous cycle of people, pumping and buying and stuff like that, right? That's how it works.
Basically, the dynamic where they all just said, "Hey, we're gonna all agree not to sell, and we're just buying." And it just goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and it just is stupid market cap at some point. But is that the dynamic you're talking about?
I guess like in sense of Wall Street bets, I don't think it was like any insider. It's more of like it was on the Reddit forum, and then everyone's like just pushing out, and it was like kind of power of the crowd, right?
Okay.
But with these whales, it's like
this would be the power of the whales versus the power of the crowd.
Correct. Yes. Okay. I mean, you see it with Bitcoin as well, but it is more amplified in altcoins where the liquidity is not as good. So I mean, like some people criticize Pirate, like saying that their distribution cycle was only like 2 years, where they already mostly allocated. Like for example, like Bitcoin, it's almost fully allocated. It's like I think 18, 19 million now, or 21 million, right? But then like Pirate, that it took like so many years to get there, right? I think like since 2009 till now, right? Yeah. I think Pirate is almost fully allocated within 2 or 3 years. So some people criticize to say, oh yeah, that's, you can say you're a fair launch, but then if your distribution period was so short, that also kind of amounts to a pre-mine, because back then Pirate was nobody, right? I'm not saying that they did it, but I'm just saying that it's a criticism that when you have a very short distribution cycle, you don't have enough time for people to come in, and it's kind of like really, really rewarding the early adopters. But that's fine. Yeah.
Did I hear you right? Did you say Roger Ver was one of your 2 initial?
Correct. Yes.
And he owns Bitcoin.com, I understand, right?
Yes, that's right.
So right now, I want to test this, because Dustin Plantholt, he is the host of Bitcoin.com podcast. And he told me, he said, Uncle V, believe it or not, with all the people I know across the cryptocurrency ecosystem, which is almost everybody, he says, I have one go-to YouTube channel that I listen to without fail when it launches, and it's you. So I said, the next time I do this, I'm going to say, hey, Dustin, and everybody go to Bitcoin.com podcast and download it. And he also has Life's Tough as a podcast, which is awesome. And Dustin is the CEO of Crypturns.com. And that is a very exciting project. So if you want to get into the crypto space and you just have that interest, you can apply to become a Crypturn and learn how to do it so that you might be placed out there within some of these great projects. Or if you are a company who needs arms and legs, hearts and minds, you could post hire a Crypturn on there. So that's just my little shout out to Dustin to see if he messages me and says, yeah, Uncle V, I heard you say that. I heard you give me a shout out, because I'm just testing you. Do you really listen all the way through my shows? Sometimes they get long. All right. Sorry about that. I tell you, I want to be respectful of your time. I asked for 90 minutes and you've given me 2 hours, and
wow.
it's been awesome. So time flies when you're having fun. I hope that this exchange, that I have been fair with the questions I've asked, and I just want to kind of leave it to you. Is there any question that I haven't asked that you wish I would, or is there any message that you'd like to share? Or for sure, let us know again how people can find you, and especially on Twitter, which is at Reuben Yap, by the way, REUBEN Yap. He's a fun follow. I really enjoyed looking at all of
A bit critical and a bit cynical, but still hopeful.
I love it.
Well, I don't have much to say. I mean, I really would like, to see some of you. I think our community is one of the most welcoming. Even if you want to just learn more about privacy in general, we have a really good write-up that dives into the different privacy tech. We also are very we're happy to educate you on what we're doing and stuff like that. So drop out our Telegram community at Firo Project, and our website has all the social links that you need. So yeah, would really love to see you guys.
So really the takeaway, and I'll post a link once this renders, and it takes 18 hours. I'll go in and add my show notes, but I'll include Firo.org, and then people can go there and they can look and identify all the social media platforms and join and whatnot. But Max spoke so highly of you before I reached out, and so any friend of Max is an auto friend of ours, because we're really committed to privacy here, even though we don't know much. But we do. I don't know. Most of the people in this community, they still retain the capacity to critically think for themselves, and so that's the purpose of this channel, is just to have a lot of smart people on, have a conversation, and people can absorb, take in what they like, dismiss what they don't. But at minimum, we give them incremental information to be able to make big boy and big girl decisions. And you have been great, Reuben. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. One thing we actually left out, which was quite big, but I don't know if we have time, but is our involvement in the Thai Democrat Party elections, where our blockchain was actually used for a nationwide political election to elect its party leader with over 127,000 votes casted. And I think it's the world's largest political election on the blockchain that I know of. I've never seen anything of that scale, and we were part of that. So
wait, so
that's cool.
How did that work?
Well, how did that work? So
what was Firo's role?
So we were then Zcoin, and we were there to kind of do the consultation, and our just in a very in a nutshell, so the Thai Democrat Party wanted to elect its party leader, and previously it was only basically the big wigs, the senior party members saying, okay, you be the party leader, right? But this guy really wanted the mandate from the individual party members, and he's saying, well, we should do this via e-voting. But unfortunately, halfway through this implementation of e-voting, the other candidates were not satisfied that it would not be tampered with. They did not trust the Thai Democrat Party's election commission. They said that if there's going to be all the votes, how do we know that it's not being tampered with?
Right.
And Paramin, which is our co-founder as well, he used to serve in. He was the one that started Zcoin, right? And he was the co-founder that didn't run away. So he started everything, and He formerly served as in the cyber warfare department of the Thailand's military, and obviously, so his opinion was kind of widely regarded, right? And he's like saying, "Look, you guys, you keep arguing about this. Why didn't you use the public blockchain?" And I actually founded one. Why do you use Zcoin? So so everyone surprisingly agreed, and we did a way to encrypt the votes on chain so that people cannot see who voted for who unless everybody agreed to open the votes. And I would say it's more of like, I wouldn't say it was a perfect implementation. It was just more of like a proof of concept, which had very real consequences because it was an actual election. But yeah, I mean, like we went to NASDAQ, we were interviewed at NASDAQ, we interviewed at BBC, so that was really cool. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the cryptocurrency market doesn't care about stuff like that. But I thought it was a really cool use case for public blockchain technologies, and actually our technology can be also like Lelantis, about the ability to burn coins and redeem them. You can use it in the voting system, because let's say if I gave everyone a coin and I let you burn it, and now if I wanted you to vote person A, person B, person C, so you just need to spend that coin to the address that you want to vote for, and that vote would be anonymous but verifiable, right?
Wow, that is
so.
I hope you that would solve so many issues, right? Because I don't trust any of them who are what I refer to as the Druid Babylonian bastards in charge. So that is a great use case. That's
yes,
exciting, man. I hope you guys continue to, hammer that one.
Yeah, so like I know Max has been like working on like other tokens on his platform. So we are also working on what we call the Elysium tokenization layer. We don't intend to be like Ethereum and everyone can launch their ERC20 tokens, but anyone can launch their token that has all the privacy features of Firo. So that means like if I want to do like a voting thing, like I want to hold a vote, then I can just like issue some token to be used in the voting mechanism, we want to do a privacy stable coin. So that's like
it's food for my soul, because to me, that becomes a use case that's a different energy that would be contributed to this, right? People using their brain. It's like with all of our companies, we the company, the guys I work for, we have 22 portfolio companies, and we talk about, when you were talking about outsourcing, right? What we vocalize it as, we outsource arms and legs, and we keep in-house hearts and brains, hearts and minds. And what you're talking about here is you could have somebody out there who is just like, man, I want this system to be fair. How are we going to have this be fair? Well, instead of relying upon all of these corporations out there to come up with the next best voting machine, take it to the blockchain. Take it to Firo. Firo's solved for it. Everybody can get a token and they can burn it anonymously to the address where they want the vote to go, and nobody can fuck with it. That's glorious, man.
So, and a great way to also see this is that like we see this layer as kind of like we are providing not just a privacy coin. Yes, we want to be currency, but if we can also provide privacy infrastructure to other stuff like voting, or you want to launch a private stable coin, I think Max is also working on something like that. Like you have that opportunity to do so. So I think that's really exciting. That's, I think it's maybe a month from now, we can do a full launch of that. So it's a really, really exciting times for our project.
But I have an open invitation to you anytime, at any point in time. If you have something new and exciting that just launched, or you want to talk about it, I would welcome you to come back. You've just been a great guest, and just dropped a ton of knowledge on us. And I know there's going to be a lot of views after the fact. We don't get a lot of people, on the live stream, but we do, we're picking up a lot of views after. And I think people are going to really, really like and appreciate this. I've been monitoring the comments, and the one comment that I saw that I think you're going to like is Reuben. respect, honest, to earth guy. And to me, man, I don't know what badge of honor I'd rather wear than one like that. So good on you.
Thank you, man.
Max, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, just a quick shout out for our camp. Our Telegram is Epic Cash. You can follow us on Twitter. We've got Freeman University at Freeman U, where we do our best to teach people about this type of stuff. And we are proud to support Firo in our roadmap for things like eDex Atomic, not through Atomic Dex. It's a different infrastructure. But anyway, we can plug into the Firo community and help cross-pollinate. We're going to do that. And also, if we can maybe raise some resources through the CCS or through Epic Fund Me on our side, we'd love to do an air grab to Firo holders or Masternode holders or both. So anything we can do to be supportive and help each other grow, that's what we're looking to do. So Reuben, thank you for accepting his invitation to come on.
Thank you so much for connecting us and having me.
Yeah, this was great. All right, guys. Well, thanks for the time. I appreciate the 2 hours. Everyone in the chat, thank you. Love you as always. I'll end with my regular